Hello and a very warm welcome to our eighth democracy talk today. I'm very happy to introduce all of you to our session, and I'm especially happy to present to you our guest speaker, Manussos Marangudakis from the Aegean University. My name is Jana Trevino. I'm project officer at the European University Continuing Education Network, and we are also partners at the Democrat Project. But Manussos, thank you very much for joining us today. And he will speak about the topic today, the social and the political conduct, and how this concept is going to be integrated in curricula in primary and secondary education in Greece. I'm very interested in your country perspective and what you are going to present, Manussos. In the end, we will then have some time for questions, but I would like to hand over to you right now. And if you want, you can also explain a little bit, just brief about your background, and then feel free to start your presentation. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much, Diana. Thank you for having me. I'm very happy that we eventually made it happen. And yes, it's your project is very interesting and very intriguing, and I'm happy to contribute to this to the best of my abilities. Myself, I'm a sociologist here in the University of the Aegean. I have been educated at McGill University in Canada. I lived for a while in Ireland, and finally I settled, at least for the moment, in Lesbos Island, which is not bad actually. And my topic is civility and citizenship in Greece in relation to political culture in Greece. I have recently written a book on the Greek crisis and its cultural origins, and I'm very much interested in the way democracy is perceived by the people. And it is much more complicated and much more confusing than we tend to believe of what democracy really means. In Greece, in particular, it's the democracy is mostly understood in a collectivist manner or orientation as the will of the people, as the way by which our desires are materialized, and the ways by which our interests are best served. And there is not so much, let's say, the presence of democracy as civil society, at least as this pattern was developed in Western Europe. Something that makes democracy here in Greece a very exciting, if you like, way of doing things, but it also becomes very problematic in recent years when you have the development of more individualistic attitudes, especially in the European context, where rights become much more important than responsibilities or duties. And this was my main, if you like, problematic of the subject when I was invited by the Institution of Educational Policy a few years ago to become the coordinator of this effort of developing new curricula for social and political education, how to approach it.
Yes.
And my concern is how do you deal with a situation where democracy is considered to be in the DNA, let's say, of the cultural genetic material of the people who believe that they are strongly democratic, but they find it very difficult to trust each other. They find it very difficult to create communities, real substantive communities, especially in urban centers, and where democracy is understood as reacting to governmental policies and as defying, if you like, standard behavior rules and regulations and so on. And it was a problematic because uh, you do not want to alienate the people who will read the material and the educators. Because even if you're right, if you alienate them, then you are, you have lost the game. Somehow you need to keep the balance. You have to avoid, let's say, extreme scenario or predispositions, and welcome and allow them to see for themselves what you want to say in a, let's say, in a very indirect way through the activities that this new curricula are suggesting and inviting teachers to develop in their classes. The curricula are not confronting, let's say, the reader. It does not instruct, they do not instruct the reader. They suggest ways and dynamics in the class. So the skills that are necessary to build a democratic profile, a substantive democratic profile, will be cultivated in the class.
Maybe we could have a look on the curricula more in detail. I think you prepared it also a little bit, and
Yes, I will. I will now start the presentations, and we will take it from there. Just share screen, and here you go. If you can see it.
yes.
Okay. So, can you see now as I move to the next slide?
Yes.
Okay. So this is what was taken under consideration, and I say that because each and every country builds their curricula in different backgrounds and on different bases. It's different if the curricula, let's say, are developed in the UK, where both my sons have been educated, and I know of their curricula. And if they are developed in Italy or in Greece, in some other part of the world. So in the Greek case, what we're taking under consideration is, first of all, the multiplicity of value postulates in Greek society. You cannot say that you have a value system, or at least an elaborated value system, which is shared by the vast majority of the people. Second, you have a multiplicity of political ideologies of the party system, with a very strong left component, which makes things a bit more sensitive when you come to what is democratic and what is not democratic. Third, you have widespread antinomian tendencies in the educational system, with many educators being very cautious or suspicious of the educational system. And last, lack of community spirit in urban centers. So you cannot take it for granted that there is a community spirit tradition on which to build. In other words, you have to start from scratch at school. And last, which is extremely important, is that the ministry has allocated very few hours in this social and political educational module. 1 hour per week on the 5th and on the 6th grade of primary school, and 2 hours, 3 hours on the 3rd grade of high school, and 2 hours on the 4th grade of high school, and that's it. So this makes it if not problematic, but it restricted a lot our ability to expand and um, delve into some of the matters that needed so. So what was our aim, me and my team? Our aim was the students to be able to distinguish between formal and institutional democracy, like what are the rights and obligations of the citizen and as they are written in the Constitution, let's say, from substantive democratic behavior that is duty, courtesy, trust, cooperation with other peers. We usually tend to allocate or to envision democracy as a set of rules, but we find it very difficult to, and I'm talking about here in Greece, very difficult to communicate with one another, trust one another, listen to one another, and come together in trustworthy relations. The second was to value the open underlined, open national political community and the structures of the democratic polity as guarantors of liberties and equality for all, for citizens, but also for non-citizens, let's say immigrants or refugees. And third, to develop skills toward responsible political and social engagement. Most of the curriculum is structured around development of skills, soft skills, for how to act democratically in a constructed environment, institutional environment, such as a school. Now, having said that, we have somehow to specify what is our vision of the citizen. How do we perceive the citizen? So to build a series of activities, skills, and so on and so forth toward materializing that role or that ideal. Shall we see them as consumers? Shall we see them as ad hoc collectivities in school or outside of schools? Shall we see them as individuals? Or shall we see them as some kind of cosmopolitan or European assemblages of people that come and go in a fluid environment? And the answer to this, or the choice, was to take as our model the Republican open community, or what Habermas would call constitutional patriotism, saying that the Republican national community is the only framework in which rights, obligations, and duties to others are balanced. And what was the target? The target was to strengthen individual self-confidence and skills, especially soft skills, in-group trust, cooperative skills, and esprit de corps in school, so that they will not see school as another facility or premise, but see it as the basis of their political and social identity, especially now that family is actually under crisis. And third, tolerance of the multiple identities of modern Greek society. And when we say modern Greek society, we also include immigrants and refugees. And also ethnic minorities, like the Muslim minority in Thrace, the Roma minority, and so on and so forth. And our target was to have democracy as a lived experience. In other words, able to reflect, to cooperate, to create horizontal interactions, and to see the group as a means for creativity. That power is not something given, is not something out there, but power can be created by the school community, by communal action. So it's not a zero-sum game, but it is a positive-sum game. What were the theoretical implicit assumptions into building this curriculum? Uh, the basic assumption is that society is not something homogeneous, as it were, let's say, 50 years ago, but it is a multiple and overlapping dynamic and fluid condition with blurred boundaries. So we take that for granted. And then we made specific assumptions about the curriculum and about school life, that correct socialization or proper socialization or civil socialization is directly linked to citizenship, that civility and moderation are the basic characteristics of a democratic citizen, that cooperation and skills create functional democracies. Without skills and without cooperation, if we remain isolated individuals, democracy will be a formality. But when crises arrive, then we will behave like a mob or some kind of, how can I say, um, a conglomeration of passions rather than as proper rational citizens. That democracy is a complexity full of dilemmas, contradictions, self-restrictions, and compromise. So it's not what was used to present it as democracy as some kind of a triumph of the people that now we are free and we can do as we like. No, democracy is a difficult regime, is the most difficult regime because all other regimes ask you to be obedient. This one asks you actually to train yourself to be restricted and to be rational and to be able to cooperate. So it's the most difficult one. And that democracy is not a way to materialize any need or want, which is actually quite widespread in Greece at the moment. So I gather, let's say, the basic titles of the three sets of curricula. The fifth and the sixth grade of primary school are two curricula which are related to each other. One, in other words, is aware, the sixth grade is aware of the material covered on the fifth grade. And then you have a second curricula and the third grade of high school, and then a fourth and the fourth grade of high school. And that's it. There is 1 hour allocated on weekly basis on the fifth and sixth grade of primary school. 3 hours allocated the third grade of high school and 2 hours on the fourth grade of high school. So all of these things that need to be said and done and the skills to be acquired are actually restricted in the least timely module of the whole primary secondary curriculum of the Greek educational system. There are more hours allocated to teaching Latin rather than social and political education. When I inquire into that, I was told that Latin and ancient Greek are the basis of the classical education. And I said to them in response, but not for the Romans and the ancient Greeks, they were not. So anyway, underneath these titles, you can see the people I worked with for the development of these modules. All of them are educators, with the exception of Panagiotis Gavrimis, who was also a professor of a sociology professor of education. All the rest are MA or PhD holders and are educators. And we work together as teams to produce this curricula. The fifth and sixth grade, deal with very basic, preliminary, if you like, concepts and skills on the matter. Life at home and family life, school life, life in the community and the wider world. The third grade in high school, the individual is a member of social groups. The individual is a citizen, the individual in the wider world, like, for example, the political life in a town, the political life in the periphery, the state, European Union, and so on. And the fourth grade of the high school, that was a bit more detailed, if you like. Here we deal with the citizen and citizenship, decision making, ways to come to decision making, the inclusion of individual, the society and the state, civil society, polity, state attitudes and society, organization of the state and legal order, sustainability as a model of economic and social development, immigration and the refugees, and social problems. Now, these are just titles, but most of the material was covered and is covered in activities inside the class. So there is very little confrontal, if you like, education, telling people what it is, and there is more of discovering what it means by activities in the class. Key subjects that are covered in this curricula are types of families, different but equal, sexual roles, and so on are mentioned here. Types and ways of cooperation. You pay a lot of attention of developing skills in the class of how you can cooperate, different ways to cooperate, how you engage in productive argument, how do you listen to what the others say, what is the role, what is the purpose actually of argumentation. Uh, for example, it's not to win the argument, but to find the truth of the matter, coming to terms with with the other side, getting into his shoes, finding ways to cooperate or to combine your approaches as to come out to a positive conclusion of the argument. It's not to win the argument. Decision making, ways of decision making, bullying, and of course anti-bullying, engagement with internet, fake news, and so on, prejudice and stereotypes, active citizenship, how you can be an active citizen, let's say volunteering action or protest or lobbying, things like this. Protest and lobbying, yes. Combating social ills. What can you do in your neighborhood? What you can do at school? What do you know about social ills and problems in your neighborhood? And last but not least, principles and basic rules of the Greek and the EU polity, like the constitution, like political structures, and so on and so forth. The structure and the methods that are used in the curricula, they are student-centered because they're based around experiential and research activities in class. Activities oriented as particular subjects are covered in class activities and projects, usually group projects, developed around specific and articulated axes from the most tangible to the most abstract. The most tangible is the fifth grade of primary school. The more abstract is the fourth grade of high school. Use of primary sources and digital material. The ministry is particularly keen to develop a digitalized version of the curricula and all the school activities. The assumption is that this will make it more attractive, it will make it more interesting and more engaging. I'm not so sure about it, but this is something to be seen in the next year. Also, cross-cultural approaches. In other words, the activities in school activities take into account what happens in other classes, in other modules. so that they will understand better, or they will appreciate the knowledge that they received in other classes. And last, the strong emphasis on negotiation skills and collaborations inside and outside the classroom. So I will stop here, and depending on your questions, I will elaborate more.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Manussos, for your very interesting insights and the approach you developed, the redesign of curriculum, so to say. So I have took note of many questions. Maybe I also would like to again invite all other participants here in Zoom, but also in the YouTube channel to address your questions. But I would like to start with a more practical one, so to say. Was there a starting point to launch this initiative to redesign curricula with regard to this content? Because as far as I understood, it's supposed to be done on a large scale. So maybe you can explain this a
Yes,
little.
it was 4 years ago that the ministry decided to develop new curricula for all classes, for all modules of primary and secondary school. So one of these modules was the social and political education one. The idea was to make it less confrontal and more activity oriented.
Okay. And this is, so to say, now a pilot project. So you will launch this curriculum as soon as I understood. And is it piloted in various schools? And for how long is this going to take place? And what will happen after this pilot phase?
Okay, good question. It was developed between 2020 and 2022, and then we taught or we presented the curricula to a sample of schools, of teachers, of what we call experimental schools, or schools which have an advanced, let's say, curricula vis-a-vis the rest of the schools. These are schools that they first test new curricula before they the new curricula are allocated to the rest of the school community. So we train them, let's say, of what these new curricula are, what are the subject matters, what kind of activities they will use, and they then became the trainees of the rest of the teachers who will teach this material. So we trained something like, if I'm right, 20 teachers, high skilled teachers, and they became then the trainers of all the other teachers in schools around Greece. This year, the new curricula will be used in all classes without any textbooks, because the textbooks are still in the process of being written.
Mm-hmm.
And the new textbooks that will be based on this new curricula will be distributed into schools and classes next year.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much, Manussos. We have a question on some more questions in the chat from Carsten Kluger. He's leading the Democrat project, and he asks, what is the understanding of rational, which you mentioned? And second, are there relations to our competencies? And our competencies include solidarity, participation, deliberation, judgment, and democratic resilience. And this last question is regarding the method, but maybe we come to this first one.
Okay. So by rationality, I mean all those things that the question is mentioning. Participation, collaboration, skill development, reflection, I would add, um, and responsibility. Responsibility is something that I haven't mentioned, which is actually extremely important because responsible being means I am aware of the consequences of my actions, not only to me, but also to people around me. And I'm ready to take the responsibility of my actions. So this is what I would call rational. Rational in the sense sober, reflective, and also aware of the presence and the consequences of my action to the other people around me, to my community, especially my school community.
And then there was another question from Carsten, and he asks regarding the method, and he wants to know if the curriculum also has some implications in the teaching method.
Yes, the teaching methods are not confrontational. In other words, it's not the teacher who will teach, who will tell the students what is democracy, but it is activity oriented. Usually, for example, students are divided into groups. They are asked to discuss a subject, to find perhaps some information online, to play different roles, to come to be aware of the different roles that they play in society, of what of the different elements, psychological elements, social elements, each and every role incorporates, and to distinguish between the role and the individual. This is not something that it's confrontationally taught, but it's something that we hope that the students and the teacher will become aware of as they play these games in class. It is extremely important and I'm talking as a sociologist, to distinguish between a person, her social background, and also the different roles this person is asked to play in a social setting. This is a way to distance one from judging other people, of who they are, and what are his or her identities. That we may have different identities according to the roles we are asked to play in a social setting. Also to confront the fact that they also play different roles, which sometimes are confronting each other. For example, as a friend of, let's say, Catherine, I want to do A. As a student, I'm called to do something else. What do you do in this moment? Mm-hmm. We don't tell them what to do. This is not the subject matter of the project or of the activity. It's just to make them aware that this kind of freedom or of liberties that they enjoy is full with dilemmas.
Okay. This brings me also to my question. I took note because you mentioned the limited time of hours you have to introduce this topic in the curricula. Is this will this be a single course, or will be or is there also a chance to combine this with other subjects? What are you planning?
Both.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, and this is where the educators were extremely helpful. into creating this curricula is that this module takes into account other classes, other modules that take place simultaneously during the same year. History, it could be history, it could be language, it could be what else are they? I don't, religion and so on, and how they can bring these topics into this class, but under a different, if you like, denominator.
Yes. Yeah. Because I think this might help to make this little amount of time most impactful or more impactful in the end. I don't know. I'm not sure if any of the Zoom participants has any more questions. If not, I would have more. No, I guess no.
I
But
had a question. Sorry, Diana.
sorry, Vanina.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I was just thinking about it a little bit. Thank you so much for your presentation, Manussos. I guess my question has to do a bit with the multiplicity of value that you spoke about in Greek society. And I'm wondering how the curriculum will go about ensuring that all of these different and diverse perspectives are addressed equally, especially when you're speaking on controversial or sensitive topics such as, immigration or social issues.
Um, we do not make statements that could create some kind of political, let's say, upheaval. For example, on the fourth grade, we're talking about the different types of regimes, and we talk about liberal democracies, illiberal democracies, and authoritarian, totalitarian states. And I didn't use any examples of illiberal democracies because I know that at least 30% of the population in Greece does not consider Russia to be an illiberal democracy. Okay? So I used North Korea as a totalitarian, which I think that not even North Korea will have any opposition to this. But other than this, we try to present the case. We don't lie. We don't keep information out of the class, but we try not to upset people by, if we can avoid it. Now, if the teacher wants in the class to use examples or to let's say to bring forward and create an activity around it, she is free to do that. We have also included, for example, a few web pages, for example, from The Economist, we say which rates countries according to the degree of liberties. It's there. If the teacher feels comfortable with it, she can use it. If she disagrees with it, she can ignore it. This is what I mean that we take into account. We do not tell them what is the right value. What we do try to do is to create cooperative environments and settings, horizontally cooperative settings where the students can act jointly to produce something inside the school or outside the school. And we leave the rest to the teacher. The teacher has a lot of liberties of how to use this 1 hour or 2 hours. There is each and every class come with something like 5 or 6 different activities. Not all of them will be used in the class. So the teacher will choose that activity that she feels more comfortable with.
Thank you. That makes sense. I suppose that gives a lot of the intention and the sort of independence to the teachers, which I guess can sort of invoke some bias in certain issues, but I think it's also good to put the trust in the teachers, given that they have that training. So yeah.
Now, all of these activities are one way or another productive.
Yeah.
So as long one of these takes place, we are happy.
Thank you.
I would like to focus maybe on a challenge that might arise when you implement this curriculum. What do you think? What kind of challenges might the teachers or also educators face when they implement this democracy oriented curriculum, and to include lived experiences such as reflection? What kind of challenges could be arise?
As far as I know, very little, because this curricula were developed by me and educators who have a lot of experience in classes. So they are aware. I'm not aware. They are aware of what is the conditions or the level of expertise of the teachers, and they feel very comfortable with it. So for the moment, I feel very comfortable as well. In a couple of years' time, we will know how it was actually implemented in the class. But it's straightforward. It does not ask for any kind of elaborated or complex knowledge of the issues. We are all equal. We need to learn how to cooperate. And by cooperate, the more we cooperate, the more strong we are as a team. The only thing which is missing, but there was no way that could be developed in the context of the curricula, is the school with an identity, with a symbolic identity that will really become a reference point for the life of the students. Some schools have a strong identity, a tradition identity, full with activities. Students feel proud of being members of this and that school, but this is not true for all schools. And what I would like as a next step is a project where schools will develop identities that will be meaningful to the students.
Okay, thank you very much. I would like to have a last question because we're running out of time. And this is more a general one, because I'm always thinking about this topic. How can we design competence frameworks from a cross-country perspective, taking into consideration the uniqueness of every country, to like the cultural, historical background, and I think this is something challenging, so to say. What I would like to know your opinion about this. Do you think it's sensible, and what do these overarching competence frameworks need to consider?
Oh, what a question. Okay, well, this happens to an extent by these exchanges between schools on the European level. I mean, and actually a few of my university students in the master's course who are teachers have actually done research on how productive and in a way breakthrough are the experiences of seeing how other schools abroad operate. They really enrich their perspective. But I would say that each and every school should consider how productive a certain focus will be for the students. In other words, not all students have the same needs or at the same level, or they have the same orientation. Some schools need to be more local, in other words, focused on the locality. Some other should be more cosmopolitan. Should be more cosmopolitan. I don't want to be biased, but yeah, you cannot expect each and every school to develop the same profile towards other curricula or towards the abroad and so on and forth. I think they should have more autonomy of how they should develop and how the curricula should be developed. It's very tricky because some of them will not do well, some of them will lag behind. But I think it will be very promising and very productive. In this way, especially the teachers, the educators, will feel more in charge of themselves and have a more meaningful, if you like, life at school. When will be up to them to decide and to be leaders of their community. I don't know if I have answered your question.
Yes, I think you answered it. Maybe not everything what I was focusing on, but I think this is a question we cannot answer also. So, but what I hear very much is this part of autonomy that should be very much taken into account when you design curricula, that it allows schools and also when we speak about competence frameworks that are referring to different countries, that allow to adapt to the uniqueness, to the unique needs of every school, of every country, of every region, and so on. So I think I addressed all my questions, Manussos. Thank you very much. I don't know if we have any more questions. I guess no. And so I would like to close the session. Maybe you want to add something you think is relevant to mention in the end?
I would say that your project is extremely important, and I hope that you will expand and deepen our understanding and bring us more in connection with one another on a European level. There's lots to be done.
Yes, we will contact you, all the presenters here also regarding the upcoming conference in 2025, and so that you are up to date, and we will inform you about everything. And thank you very much for joining.
Thank you.
I would like to mention in the end that this is our last session before our summer break, and then we will continue on the 18th of September. And Manussos, you are always welcome to join our sessions again, and thanks a lot.
Thank you,
Have
Diana.
a nice summer.
You too.